Mabuhay, Kamustika. Welcome, how are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. This channel is a pro-Filipina biblical channel to help foreigners meet Filipinas. And for many, many years or decades, foreign men have seen value in Filipinas. I married one myself, and it took 30 years of being alone, coming to the conclusion that if I didn't try to marry a Filipina, I probably would never be able to get married. And it wasn't hard at all, as you can see in my videos, for us to get married. But now that I am married to her, of course, you have a whole new set of issues. One of them is having the right kind of friends. That's why this video is called Helping Your Filipina Make the Right Kind of Friends. Leaving all you've ever known in your life and moving thousands of miles across the planet to live with someone you're probably still going to be relatively unfamiliar with, that's a daunting move. And while your wife will rely on her family back home, through social media and friends that she's known all her life, she's still going to need some friends here in the United States and wherever your wife would live, and you want them to be the right kind of friends. She needs friends in high places, not friends in low places. She'll need friends who are mature and help her be spiritually grounded, especially. And they don't necessarily have to be Filipinas. Depending on where you live, you may have a very small Filipina population. Excuse me while this 12-month-old cough gets the better of me. Here in Nebraska, I looked it up once, there's not very many Filipinas, maybe 1%, 1 to 2%, not very many. We just met some at Sprint. We went into a Sprint store. There was one person getting helped and two ladies sitting down with their children. They both happened to be Filipinas. Struck up a conversation with my wife, and that was pretty cool to see. Now, I'm sure they exchanged contact information, and whether they would be the right kind of Filipina or not, only time will tell. As soon as I got back from marrying my wife in the Philippines in May of 2015, after only knowing her since March 17th of the same year, I called my pastor and asked him if he knew any Filipinas, and probably if he knew anyone that knew any Filipinas too, so I could talk to them. I thought it would be great if she knew at least one other Filipina. I thought that would be important to my wife, and I also knew that immigration could take 9, 10, 11, 12 months. It ended up taking 8 months, and we could have done it a little sooner than that. But I knew I had some time, which is what I would encourage everybody to do. Start investigating good Filipinas or non-Filipina friends to introduce your wife to. Now, my pastor knew a man involved in Christian ministry, married to a Filipina, maybe 10 years older than my wife, this woman, and I got his email address, messaged him out of the blue. We had never met, never talked, and told him I just married a Filipina and was looking for someone else to be a good influence on her, and that my pastor, who he knew, gave me the name of his wife, and he said he would do that. This family took the initiative to invite us over to their house, and we watched some quality DVDs with their family and had dinner. And we have had them over to our place a couple of times for dinner. And this most certainly was in answer to prayer. But it started, relatively early in this whole process of getting my wife over here into this country. I contacted a man I know that married a Filipina back around the year 2000 and not had any contact with him because I left that church a long time ago. And I looked him up on Facebook and found out that he was there. And so it took many months for him to reply on Facebook since he didn't usually use it. And as is common, the wife is the one that kind of runs that kind of social media. But eventually he got my message, And we have had them over a couple times to our place. Eyes has gone shopping with this man's wife at Costco, and she's about 20 years or so older than my wife. And I'm sure she's a Christian also, because I know this man wouldn't have married one. And his story is interesting. You know, he married this Filipina, I think, just before the internet. They were using letters, so the communication was harder. Probably the questions they asked had to be more direct, and they really had to get down to brass tacks, which is what I did with the internet. That's one reason we got married in less than 8 weeks. Well, shortly after my wife arrived here in the States, a younger lady at church, just a couple years older than my wife, with the help of another woman who was an immigrant from Australia, planned and organized a women's shower for my wife. I asked if I could be there and was told no, I could not be there for that. I was not going to get an invitation to this shower. My wife received about 45 gifts, and the church only had an attendance of about 75, and they were very impressed with my wife in this shower they showed her through her, and this church had prayed for me to find a wife at my request. You know, the prayer letter. You've got a group of people usually that will pray for people, and a lot of the prayer requests, of course, are going to be centered on health concerns, like a 12-month-old cough. Maybe that's what I should do next. But I wanted mine to be about my wife that I didn't have, and I had tried everything and was going to keep trying everything. But I had been reluctant to try church prayer due to maybe a misunderstanding. And, you know, there were times I asked people to pray for me just in private, and they seemed embarrassed to be praying with me for a wife. So this was a bunch of people on a list, and they went through the prayer list, and I told them, keep praying for a wife for Bob until he gets one. If it ends up being 10 years and we're still praying, the embarrassment will be all mine, but we got to pray for a wife because I believed it was the right thing to do. And it did. You know, we prayed for maybe about a year, and certainly it worked. I got married. Now, since my wife doesn't drink alcohol, she's not likely to become friends with women that do, that would have her over for drinks or go out to the bars and start telling her wrong things, introducing her to other guys. You know, I saw alcohol ruin my mother's marriage, my parents' marriage, I should say, decimated it, and other marriages too. So you can understand why I personally don't want anything to do with alcohol. And yes, that was on my, what you call it in dating, a must. That's not the word I'm looking for. Anyway, something that is non-negotiable. You know, I did not want to marry somebody that drank alcohol, because you just never know. They may say they're a social drinker. They may be more than that. And that's all I want to say about that. Deal breaker. There's the term. It was a deal breaker if they would have been drinking alcohol, using drugs, anything like that. So I was concerned about her being influenced by the wrong people, especially at work. I don't think that has been the case at this point. Where we work, we probably have 600 or more people. And if there was someone was trying to influence her the wrong way, I would surely try to put a stop to it. I try to reinforce to my wife what the right kind of friends would be. And since I always forget this, if you're still with me, please subscribe to this channel. If you're interested at all in learning what it's like to be married to a Filipina, especially here in your country, someone that just didn't know her all that well. We got married very quickly, engaged in 18 days. Then maybe this channel will be interesting to you, as part of some of the channels you look at to try to learn about Filipinas. I would certainly welcome subscribers and even comments here. So the right kind of friends, well, they would be, to me, people that would value marriage and value commitment and not be a partier. My wife is not a partier. She probably would not even be able to be influenced that way. She doesn't like gossipers. In fact, she doesn't sit with people at work that do. And she doesn't like gossiping at all. Now, I wanted preferably Christian friends, but they don't have to be. If my wife has Christian friends, she's more likely to get the right advice, not the advice of the world, which could be anti-marriage. And church is a good place to make friends. It certainly should be. My wife does have one girlfriend she used to work with who I don't think is a Christian, but Isaac can be a good influence on her. There are plenty of horror stories of Filipinas getting wrongly influenced by Western women. We've all read that and shake our heads. All you can do is pray for God to lead her to good friends and do what you can to identify them. For me, it was praying consistently and regularly until I found enough that I felt that, that prayer had been answered. So you can't do this all alone. Pray for friends for your love beyond the sea.